Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Author's Outpost. I'm one of three, Captain B.F. Dennis.
I'm 4 3/8, Casmodian.
And I'm Kendra, I'm just here.
I'm never saying I'm a third again, because people make fun of me. But I am a third of the hosting staff. Let's clear that right up. Anyway, I realize now that you can't mute commercials on Twitch. So I had Twitch open, and I started the intro, and Pizza Hut started screaming some theme song into the middle of my intro. So that was annoying.
That's where that came from.
Well, the feed was muted, but it played anyway. So they won't let you mute an ad. It's interesting.
Well, why would you want to mute an ad? I mean, that way you can't, buy things.
Wouldn't be brainwashed enough without the audio. Anyhow, it's been a fun week of season 10.5. Although it's pretty easy to get through that featured episode. It was pretty good though. I enjoyed it, and I actually got back to be able to do Time in a Bottle, which I hadn't done yet.
I was going to say, you are now current, are you not?
I am current. But I'm really upset that the summer event ended before summer ended.
Yeah, well, it's ended the same time it always has.
Yeah,
well, actually, not quite, because they actually extended it because of all the times they've broken things this past summer-ish.
Yeah, I get stuck with 4 birds. I'm not happy about it. They could all have been marks.
Well, that is true. The downside is that, yeah, you got to hold on to those for another year or grind them up in just the regular meat grinder and turn them into a
feline supplement.
There we go, feline supplement 47.
Yeah, I got one more Borg item to get from Omega, and then I'm done with that.
Yeah, I used it to hit Iconian Resistance Tier 5, because, well, the queues didn't interest me for that one.
Well, I mean, I finally got my Mako and Omega armors, and I got all the other Borg stuff except for the deflected. No, I got the deflected dish. What's the other one? I got the Impulse engine.
Well, there's
a
the
shield.
console.
It's a shield.
Yeah, okay.
The shield I didn't get. Oh, the console was the first thing I got, actually.
I remember back in the day when you got the console from Mission.
Yeah, I know. Now you can buy those hard-to-get items, the ones you have to play the SDFs for, like the neural processors and the power cells and all that stuff. You can...
Yeah, that is, well, that was your biggest complaint about the reputation system, wasn't it?
But when I hit Tier 5, they automatically gave me like 12 of them.
Yeah, but those 12, they go away really quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our big news for this week is...
I get a bunch of...
Okay, well, yeah. You did finally, after, what? How long have we had lockboxes now? 3 years?
Yeah, well, as long as that ship has been around, I wanted one, and I finally got one.
Now, did you get one of the Tier 5 ones?
No, I opted for the Tier 6.
Okay.
You can skin it like the Tier 5. But, I might as well get the most advanced one if I'm going to get it. I paid, 490 million ECs for it.
Well, hey. If that's been your dream ship.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it.
I've still always wanted the Marauder just because. I would be happy if we ever got account-wide ships, but...
Yeah.
Wishes were like fishes.
It's pretty cool with a Riemann shield on it, too, I gotta say.
But, yeah, we survived the release of 10.5.
All right,
yay!
Well, let me hit the news then, and we'll continue. cool news intro. Okay, good.
Yeah, we survived 10.5. Everything didn't blow up. The foundry's still there. Woohoo! We didn't really get anything. So that's the downside.
Well,
Except, we got the pilot ships, and a couple of other costume things in there, but nothing new and nifty. And
we got the. I mean, if you got the low buy to buy the ship, and if you open some lock boxes, you can get some stuff. But
sure,
free stuff. No, we didn't get much.
Well, I meant more in the foundry, but yeah, there.
Oh yeah, no foundry.
But yeah, we got 10.5. We survived it. Things haven't blown up spectacularly. It was kind of hit or miss the first day because they were down for like 8 hours.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see that it was still down when I got home from work, and I was like, gee, I didn't miss anything.
No, not really. I got in for a few seconds to get the first run of the research lab going, and I didn't even get to finish all that because having BOFs that are all full, or having all your DOF slots filled up makes it hard to,
Yeah, that's why I use one of my alts to do that. I have him completely, I empty his roster of like 200, and then I just go to the star base and buy them and throw them into the project.
Yeah. The only problem was I didn't have the time to do that before they took the server down, and then it was down for 8 hours.
Yeah, and the alt doesn't have many fleet credits either. So.
Right, and it's a diminished return too because it costs 750 to buy a common DOF, and then you only turn around and get 300 back for each one you put back in.
Right.
So
good. I mean, if I could transfer the fleet credits, that would be cool too, because I get like 7-8 million on my main.
Oh yeah, I only have 1.2, but then I've spent a lot of them over the years too. So we got the Armada system. Yay!
Another thing I don't understand. Well, I mean, I get it, but
I don't know that there's a whole lot to understand.
Yeah.
We get a bonus to skill points. We get a bonus to dilithium discounting, and yeah, you can contribute to other fleets in order to get fleet credits. Which, for the large fleets, that's a good thing. Because you can now contribute to the smaller fleet. You'll get your fleet credits that you need. They'll get the much needed resources they need to grow bigger. And it helps everybody. The big thing is you don't have to sit here and play round robin, have somebody in the other fleet bring you in to contribute, and then have somebody bring you back into your home fleet. So
right. Yeah, see, I haven't even played those games yet, I'm just going to wait till we're at, the tier we need to be, tier 4, I guess, to stop buying ships.
Well, fortunately, tier 4 doesn't get you a sovereign if that's what you're looking for.
No, not yet. I have plenty of ships, I have patience.
Yeah, well, maybe one day they'll make an upgrade to the fleet shipyard where you can buy more ship slots.
Yeah, that would be cool. I have 2 of the Nihydran ships in my inventory, and I just don't have room. So they'll either get sold, or they'll just sit there for a while.
Otherwise, news-wise, it's been relatively light since 10.5 went up. We've gotten really one news post since then. That was another Tales of the War, which is continuing to tease that we're going to do bad things with time.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about that idea.
So, without giving many spoilers to the new mission, though, we're getting almost to the point where we can probably legally talk about it without people throwing a fit. What do you think of the idea that we're so desperate that we will change the entire timeline? And that the Department of Temporal Investigations is okay with this.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're okay with it. They just don't. They're not arguing with it.
I
You
haven't
know?
played it yet.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much, but I think one thing that the episode did prove is that you don't necessarily need to mess with time to kill them.
Well, killing
No.
Iconians is one thing. Surviving an onslaught of heralds.
No, I haven't found the heralds to be that bad, to be honest.
Yes, but
I'm
you're
knocking
you're
these
not
things
fighting,
off left and right in my Avenger. You know?
Yes, but that's a limited engagement. You aren't defeating a planetary invasion force.
No. And I don't find it very difficult on the ground either.
You just need to fight more defilers.
No,
Or else you need to teach me.
No, I mean, I got.
What are you playing as, Paul?
I'm an engineer. I have
Try playing as a science character.
I have like 3, armed probes that fly around and shoot them all, and I have turrets and, all kinds of.
Man, he's got
stuff.
his big tech guy who just kirks.
Yeah, he just knocks
Beats
everybody
out.
right over. They're like bowling pins.
Because I tried, not the latest one, but 2 ago, I tried playing as my tech character and as my psi character, and my science character did not do so well, and that's my main character. And my tactical character, that was a lot better, because I could, throw grenades at them and actually hurt them before I got there, but...
That's how I do it. My away teams are all engineers and tacticals. Everybody who's got grenades and weapons. I don't bring any healers or anything. I mean, I just don't.
Oh yeah,
I just have people doing damage. That's all
Yeah.
I care about.
I had 3 tactical and 1 engineer, and I still was, dying instantly.
No, I mean, I get knocked off a couple of times, but, I get revived.
Why do I just now have Chubbawamba going through my head of you getting knocked down and you get up again?
Well, I mean, most of the time I can call for help, and I have someone left to come and revive me. Very few times have I had to hit that respawn button, because...
Oh, this was boom, and everybody's dead.
Yeah, red aura, boom, oh look, Eliza Doolittle's dead again.
Well, let's, I should let you guys do the introductions here, because I wasn't available to talk with our esteemed guest this week. But I will say that our author profile for July is this week's show, and Cast and Kendra are going to tell you all about it.
Oh, we are? Well,
I'm hoping you are.
we interviewed Admiral Murphy for this month's author profile. Some of you will probably remember him from back in the day, the original Stoked. He also had the Foundry Files podcast, which he and we did for a number of episodes, which was another entirely dedicated to the Foundry podcast, where they would review various missions and discuss what they liked and didn't like about them. He also appeared briefly on the truck radio version of Stoked, before that had to get shut down for reasons. He is also, in addition to that, a prolific author. If any of you out there have ever looked at all of Paul's missions, he's got a few.
He's got like 10, 15 more than I do.
He had to create a whole nother character in order to have all of his missions. I don't even know if we have a screen big enough to display all of his missions.
No, I have like half a list, but that's going to turn on when the interview starts.
But yeah, he has quite a he has thoughts on all the things.
Mhm.
And we had fun interviewing him. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us live, so this is all canned.
Mhm.
But
And
we are ready to roll whenever you are. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we have joining us Admiral Murphy of Foundry File fame and a lot of missions. So say hello to everybody, Murph.
Hello, everybody.
And I guess we can get kind of quite into it. Kendra, I believe you had the first question.
So, what got you started in the Foundry?
I've always liked writing like my own Star Trek fan fiction. I've been doing it probably since middle school. And so, when the Foundry was first announced, I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually like make my writing come to life in Star Trek Online. So immediately when that hit Tribble, I started playing around on there. And that's when I made Deep Space 11, which was my first Foundry mission. Afterwards, I kept publishing missions based around that universe that I had created, and it was just a blast. So the Foundry was a huge help in just kind of also refining my own writing in a way, because I got to bring characters to life that I hadn't really thought of that much before, and so on.
So with Deep Space 11, you've got a great number of missions that kind of branch off of that. In fact, and I'm sure we're going to have an infographic trying to show everything you have.
Yep.
Is it safe to say that DS9 is your favorite Trek series, or
Very much so.
Does one
Yeah.
come above it?
No, it is Deep Space Nine. Just as I got introduced with Enterprise as my first Star Trek series, because that was coming out as I was growing up. And I liked that one. And then I saw Voyager, and that was my new favorite then. And then I always saw a little bit of like TNG. I didn't see much of the original series, and that was actually the last Star Trek series I watched all the way through. But once I started Deep Space Nine, I remember I bought season 1 just because I had never seen the show. But it intrigued me because I had an old Star Trek game, Star Trek Deep Space Nine Dominion Wars, where you either played as the Federation or the Dominion, and you got to play as their ships, go through missions. And the fun thing was, if you played as the Dominion during that game, it kind of treated it as the story arc as if the Dominion had won the war at the end and stuff like that. So it was always fun to play through that game. Looking back on it, it's kind of a crappy game because there wasn't much to it, but I loved that as a kid. And so the Dominion just intrigued me. So as I went through Deep Space Nine, I was really happy to see just where that game had come from and the storyline behind that. And probably the Jem'Hadar are one of my favorite races in Star Trek. So that's why I have 2 series kind of based off of dealing with them in my author catalog. But yeah, Deep Space Nine definitely is probably my favorite series still of Star Trek, and just any TV show. I just really like how they handled that show.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine is definitely my favorite too. What do you think makes it so compelling as a story arc?
I think it was the first Star Trek series that kind of, like, the problem I have a little bit with TNG is they kind of leave stuff behind that you think characters will remember. Not always, but still sometimes. With the original series, you had that all the time, where something you think would affect a character forever is forgotten about the next episode, which made it nice just to kind of hop around and you could watch any episode. But the thing I liked about Deep Space Nine even though there were episodes that were kind of standalone, there was still a progressive story arc and character development that I really like. And I think I grew to be attached to the characters. One of the flaws I saw with The Next Generation was they kind of intentionally wrote it so that characters didn't have conflict, since that's what Gene Roddenberry kind of wanted. But I liked in Deep Space Nine how you did have character conflict, because these were a lot of different people, and of course you're going to have conflict with that. So, and it's interesting to have that in the Star Trek universe. And they just did a really good job kind of telling the storyline of Deep Space Nine between like the Dominion War or the development of Bajor becoming a Federation player, stuff like that. And I just really grew attached to those arcs, especially later on in the show.
Yeah, I think personally, watching all of the shows, I thought Voyager was the worst as far as not carrying over from one episode to another. Like, I remember in particular, it was one of the episodes with 7 of 9. I'm trying to remember exactly what. I can't remember specifically what it was, but there was some life-altering event that happens to her, and then there's like no mention of it.
Well, it's always funny because as a kid, I really liked Voyager, but as time went on, it's become my least favorite series. I still like it a lot more than most sci-fi shows. But as a Star Trek series, there was a lot they kind of got wrong. I didn't feel they needed to go like to the other side of the galaxy to forget all of Star Trek canon. It was interesting to see, but it feels like it wasn't as dire as it should have been. I kind of compare it to Stargate Universe, as that was a similar concept. I kind of like how that show made it a little more darker, just because they are so far away from home. It feels like Voyager, stuff didn't affect the ship as much as it traveled through. Like, you think things would have gotten worse and worse as they were away from home or anything familiar for a long period of time. And that's why I kind of think a lot of fans really liked Year of Hell, was because that was kind of seeing how the ship progressively got worse over time, because there wasn't any help around. And I felt that's how this whole show should have been, and also character development, it was kind of back and forth in that show. I didn't feel attached to the characters as much in that show, but, and also, as you were saying, like, they forgot stuff like that. And I also felt like Janeway, they would write her one way an episode, but then another episode, it was like, we gotta obey the Prime Directive. But this week, screw it. There are some problems like that I kind of...
Time criminal Janeway.
Yeah. Not to mention, okay, so they're stranded that far from home, right?
Yep.
And they think it's going to take that long to get home. And yet, you only have one kid on board? Really?
Yeah, really. Like, even towards the end of the show, they only had one, and then they, like, brought on a few, but still, yeah, you think they would have done something about that. They always did when they jumped into the future. They showed, people had kids, and now the kids are running the ship, but they didn't really do that in the actual timeline.
You would have think that they would have become, like, much more family-oriented, and they would have really created more of a community instead of staying in your typical Star Trek on a ship.
Yeah,
like they were in the middle of nowhere, so, I
would expect some more flexibility with that.
Right. And especially since half the crew were now Maquis.
Yeah.
That had been incorporated.
That was something I also found interesting. Like, they didn't seem to have as much drama throughout the show with that being the thing. Because if you think about it, these guys were terrorists that hated the Federation. And yet when they're stranded together, I could see why they came together. But you think that would still cause some problems. Like, it wouldn't just be like, let's work together and get home. No drama there. You see a little bit. Seska. Yeah, you got Seska, and I think the end of season 1, you had that episode where, like, Tuvok was training some Maquis just to be a better fit. But it seemed like there would have still been more issues as you went along.
No, instead you had to deal with Neelix, and...
yeah.
And then you got 7 of 9 integrating back in, the Doctor becoming more of a person and less of Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that random thing with Leonardo da Vinci.
Whatever happened to that? I just remember that coming up like twice.
That was kind of fun, though.
It was.
That into what, like season 6 or something?
I know they worked it in early with like Scorpion, because you see, that's where I first saw him, because I saw all the Borg episodes early on. I guess maybe also why I didn't like Voyager as much was because the first time I ever saw Voyager was I bought the Borg Collective DVD, where it has like all the Borg episodes, and those were my first Voyager episodes. And of course, the last one on there is the last episode of Star Trek Voyager, so I already saw how they kind of got home. Because I was like, this is really cool. And then just the first few seconds of seeing that episode, I was like, is this the last one? Crap. But, I mean, it's still good. Voyager, I think, had some very good two-parter episodes. I have to say, like, compared to other Star Trek episodes, I think Voyager had the best for two-part episodes. They really did well with those.
In general, I would actually have to agree with you as I stop and think about it. They're multi-part episodes. I think Enterprise did season arcs the best with DS9 when they started copying the Babylon 5 format.
Yeah.
There, once they hit the Dominion War, that also helped it. But yeah, the two-part wise, with the exception of probably Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Time's Arrow.
That was a good one.
Data's head randomly showing up in San Francisco, that's a thing, but...
I have to say, Deep Space Nine one where Cisco went back in time to deal with the sanctuary districts, that was probably one of my favorite two-parters. But still, there's a lot of good ones.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking there's the one where they go back in time and the Doctor gets his emitter. there's Year of Hell, which
Yeah.
gave us a whole lockbox, and
Oh, yay!
it gave us beagles.
Actually, I did see that. I'm like, oh, crap. I know some friends who are really going to like this.
They're very, very happy beagles.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, like, we'd be playing Stow late some nights, and my girlfriend we'd be watching Enterprise on the TV, and she gets super excited every time Porthos came on the screen because she just loves dogs. That was probably her favorite character from Enterprise. So I saw the Beagles and immediately went, up, I know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, and the only downside is that they're random packs, so unless you go to the exchange to buy one,
You're going to get just a random color. Yep.
you got to figure out, if you want a Porthos style one, you got to hope. Otherwise, I've seen 3 boxes, and all 3 of them have been the Buddy style, which is the black and
Yeah. I loved when they added the cats into the game because I got the one I just happened to open did look like my cat, and I just kept making jokes of it. Just like, look, they put my cat in the game. It's actually my pet. And that just cracked me.
It acts like every cat I know. It just, I'm here.
Yep. It's just kind of like, I'm here. I'll follow you around. But if you stand still, I'm just going to sit here.
And
Come
it
on.
glares, which is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, it's really funny if you stick one of the cats and one of the dogs next to each other because the cat totally ends up looking like it's glaring at the dog.
Yeah. Just like, I don't like you. That's pretty much what my cat does when he sees dogs.
Yeah, you've invaded my territory. Yeah.
Get out.
Now, you mentioned Stargate Universe earlier.
Yes.
Do you draw influences from any other sci-fi sources beyond Star Trek for your missions?
For my missions, no. I did draw a little bit of my own fan fiction from Doctor Who, but most of it is pretty much from Star Trek. I might have some story concepts maybe from other stuff, but directly, no, not so much. I mainly kind of pulled from Deep Space Nine just because I liked what they were doing there. Because I think one of the episodes that really influenced me was the episode where O'Brien and Bashir crashed on that planet. And they kind of had to deal with these Jem'Hadar that wanted to be free of the White and the Dominion. But and there was only that one.
Really good episode.
Yep. That's where the inspiration for my character Tamak Talan came from. Another free Jem'Hadar who was leading the some other Jem'Hadar who didn't quite agree with the founders. Because I always thought if the Jem'Hadar were freed from the White, there'd still be some that are loyal to the founders, definitely, but probably some of them would separate. And so that's kind of what some of my arcs deal with and how they kind of react to that.
You mentioned that you've been writing fan fiction for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a reader?
Not so much, just because I haven't even had as much time to write as much. But if somebody ever sends me something, like I know Wee Wee has done some stuff, and I've read a little bit of it. But I'm not much of a reader into fan fiction as much.
No, just a reader in general.
Oh, like for Star Trek and stuff?
Anything.
Anything.
What do you like to read?
I mean, honestly, probably the best reading I get is from Foundry missions. That's just kind of like where my reading comes from. Like, I feel like that's picking up a book and stuff like that. Otherwise, there's no books I'm really reading right now. It's most of my time is probably spent watching different science fiction shows. I recently, what was the last one? I did watch the Stargate franchise recently. The last one I finished was Farscape, I believe. Yeah. Which I was okay with that one. That's probably what most of my time is spent doing, though, watching different science fiction shows. Babylon 5 is next on my list. I just have yet to start it.
And it's worth watching, especially considering that the rumor always has been that he pitched Babylon 5 to Roddenberry and crew, and they were like, but it doesn't move. And then magically, like within a year or so, they developed DS9, and
yeah, that's what my brother said. He's watched all of Babylon 5, and he's like, you'll really like it, trust me. I definitely see where Deep Space Nine got its inspiration from. And I go, yeah? And he goes, yep. I've seen the first episode. I think it was like the movie one or whatever that started it. And I just have yet to pick up the show. Because I've also been trying to finish a rewatch of Deep Space Nine a while.
And with Babylon 5, you have to at least commit to the first 4 seasons. It is very integrated where stuff that happens earlier does influence later. So, yeah, you got to kind of do it in order and all that. So you've been writing, you said did some Doctor Who fan fiction. Do you take any of your missions and actually turn them into an actual story?
Or No, I have not. It's kind of been the other way around. Like, I've taken concepts I've previously established. So most of my fan fiction from Deep Space 11 was written probably 2390s. So it's before Stowe. But I kind of picked it up after the fact. Now, in my actual fan fiction, characters that you meet in my Foundry missions are no longer stationed there, because I changed it to be that they're now interacting with the Stowe timeline and doing the stuff that Cryptics provided. But I changed it around just so that players could get to know the characters, like, as if they hadn't left Deep Space 11. But most of it has just been porting those ideas over into Star Trek Online. I probably could take the stories I've written in there and move them into, like, something like I know Alamek has done with City of the Palmari, which is actually a very good story. That's probably one of my favorite ones I've done. And that definitely I could see being a novel like that. I don't know if any of my Foundry series probably would make a good novel, just because they are multi-parts. They're more written to be like episodic content. But maybe like an individual mission I've written, I could see turning into a published work.
So what is your writing process? Where do you start when you create a Foundry mission? Do you start with the story first and sort of write out your dialogue, or do you get right into the editor and start messing around with stuff? What's your normal creative process like?
It's never the same for when I start into a project. A lot of my earlier stuff, it was starting like in Microsoft Word and just typing it out. As branching dialogue became available, I kind of felt more of the need to just delve into the Foundry right away to start writing and making the maps and stuff. So I don't, like, for my last series I authored, there was no, like, pre-work outside of the Foundry besides probably a rough outline of where I wanted the series to go. Kind of my first stepping block is if I'm working on a Foundry series, I kind of take the short description boxes that, like, Cryptic uses for their featured episode series. Like, take the Breen series, for instance. They have that short little description of what the mission's about. So you kind of have a rough idea where that story is going to go. And I started there with my series, and then I kind of put some bullet points of, like, where, like, maps would be for that episode. Like, here you're going to go to a Cleon starbase. You'll beam over, attack some Cleons, and eventually discover a secret there or something like that. And so that's kind of how I would work on beginning a Foundry series. And then once I'm in the editor, I usually make all the character costumes first, maps, and then start plugging everything in to make the mission.
Which, I guess, can easily be said that you are a prolific author, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where you've now created a second character just to be able to publish missions.
Yes, I have. I had probably 3 available Foundry slots left on my my own account, and I wanted to make a new mission, which I was going to make it on to my original account, because originally the mission I was going to make was like, I wanted to make something with Deep Space Nine that was like, what if they made a movie after the series was over? What would that be like? And that is still in the works, but I haven't finished it yet because I kind of got stumped on where I want it to go. But as I was writing out a whole bunch of ideas, because I had a whole bunch of different ideas, some focused on the Iconian War, a few with Gorn separatists, stuff like that. And a lot of it was just individual missions, because I wrote a lot of series, but very few individual missions. And I kind of had a few ideas for wanting to do that. But as I was writing some out, I remembered the Khan STF they wanted to do, where it was going to deal with, I guess, augments or people who believed in augment rights and stuff like that. And so I originally had that planned as a mission, just because I remember they talked up this STF that was going to deal with that escaped prisoner, James Mera, I believe it is. And they never continued that for some reason. I guess it just got pushed to the side, and I was like, I wonder if I can do something with that. And that eventually became a 5-part series, just because I felt that could be a good enough story to carry out a whole, like, series. And so that's where that inspiration came. And since I only had 3 episode slots left and I needed 5, I was like, yeah, guess I gotta go make a new account. And so that's kind of how that series started. And that's what I've so far published since coming back to the Foundry.
Because at this point you have somewhere north of 30 odd missions?
I want to say 42. I think I had 37 published on Admiral Murphy. So then my new account, which is just for Foundry authoring, has 5 more missions. So yeah, probably around there.
Do you have a specific audience in mind when you're creating your missions?
No, not really. When I started writing, when I made my first Foundry mission, I didn't even think anybody would play it. I was just kind of like, it will never get noticed. And so I just wrote it for me, and I was like, when I originally made that one, I was like, I like space combat, not so much ground. I'll throw some of that in. Like, looking back on it, my first mission, there's some story elements there, but it's very much a combat mission. And I can kind of see how my author's style has evolved along with my gameplay style. I like to do a lot of combat in my earlier missions, but like with this latest series, I definitely did try to mix it up. There's not as much combat as I used to do in my series, and I think it's just because of I don't feel like a lot of combat fits anymore with some arcs. Like, I don't feel like you should throw in combat just to throw it in. If it makes sense with the story, that's when I'd put it in. And I think too much in my earlier missions, I threw a lot more combat in than I probably should have. And if I went back to edit it, I probably would take a lot of it out. But I know with this series, there were some missions I definitely wanted to try to make maybe not non-combat, but definitely add more non-combat elements in. And probably my favorite part to author was mission 2 of my latest series. Just because there's no space combat in it, and there's some ground combat when it makes sense, but a lot of it is exploring the world I set up and finding clues to uncover the mystery as you go through the story arc and what exactly this criminal is up to now.
Which I guess we can go and ask, because I know we mentioned it when we were off air, but what is your favorite mission of what you've written?
If I had to say like an individual mission, probably Victory is Q, which did used to be a Spotlight mission. I think I resubmitted it recently. I had a real issue like locking off that mission and not being able to edit it anymore. Not so much anymore, so maybe it will get re-spotlighted soon. But that one was probably one of my favorite ones just to write individually. As an arc, my favorite probably is one I call ITPA, which stood for Intergalactic Time Protection Agency, where I kind of took the idea of future police that time travel and kind of try to keep the timeline the way it is, stop people who want to change it for whatever reason. And so in this series, you're kind of stuck in the middle of it when they make contact with you and start sending you back in time for events during Deep Space 11, like my fan fiction, stuff like that. And you start to uncover this little plot that's kind of going on. I don't want to give too much away because it does kind of spoil where it's going, but you start to get mixed up in these events, and it was just fun to kind of craft that because, like, I set up, you get this device which they refer to as a temporal watch, which you use during the mission to kind of like interact with the world. So that was always fun to set up, and different stuff like that. And it was always fun to try to. I pulled off some of my probably funnest to create like technical achievements. Like there were different points of where I'd have like rifts open up and the agents would come out through those or stuff like that. And probably one of my favorites was I ended a mission where you're dealing with the true mastermind behind the whole plot. And he's captured you and he sends you back in time and you kind of just fall through this temporal rift onto a strange alien planet. So like the whole room disappears around you and you just end up falling to the ground on some unknown world. And that was probably one of the funnest ones to create. So I definitely think probably story-wise and just tech-wise, that was probably the funnest series I had creating out of the many I created over the year.
Now, as kind of a side note thing, is this sort of the origin of where... Now, you're kind of busy on Twitter. Is this where future Admiral Murphy came from?
Yeah, it's just funny because I originally did write the Admiral Murphy character to be... like in the future, he would have like a hologram version of himself. Because I kind of wanted to deal with the idea of what if somebody created a holographic version of you in the future? Is that you or is it somebody else? And so a lot of my fan fiction kind of dealt with that. But in the ITPA series, you do deal with that hologram from the future. And so he's kind of your contact and stuff like that. But yeah, the future Murphy character, the one that probably people know of more on Twitter and stuff, is kind of like a comedic version of that, just kind of like a goofy one. But the one in the mission is actually way more serious, but it's still got the same kind of like more adventurous feel. And especially like, hey, time's my playground. I'll go around and see what I can find. Stuff like that.
And what mission that you've played that you haven't had a hand in directly do you think was just one of those, wow, oh my god, ones?
Probably one of the first was City of the Palmarie. That was probably one of my favorites. I've played so many of those since I've gotten back into playing the Foundry stuff that are really good. One of the recent ones was, I forget the name of it, but it's one of the ones you can do in the Delta Volanus cluster, where it's like a first contact mission with an alien race. And it doesn't go so well because of one of them. And it was just a really just fun non-combat mission with a great story. That was another one that I've played recently that I really like. But just for like reviewing as many missions as I have in the Foundry, there's a lot to be taken out of them. And like there are different series I really enjoyed playing through and different individual missions. There's just something to take away from each one. Like I find every author kind of has their own unique style. And it's very interesting to see how other authors do it. Like another series I really liked was the For Every Action series, which kind of dealt with Cisco's decision in, what was that Deep Space Nine episode? The one where...
Moonlight?
Yep, that one. It kind of dealt with the negative effects of that I really liked. That was another one of probably my favorite, just like pure story missions that did have some interesting combat. But there's been a lot that I've really liked. I feel like as long as an author's telling a new, interesting story, I'll probably enjoy the mission, even if it doesn't have much combat, or maybe it has a lot of combat. Not Our War was an example of a mission I loved the combat, where it ranged from just little skirmishes to eventually you getting put in head first into the Dominion War, because it is a time travel series. And so you get big epic space battles like that. So stuff like that's been really fun. But those are some of the ones that come off the top of my head. But there are so many other ones I just can't remember the name of, or aren't just coming to the top of my head that I've really enjoyed. And that was probably what kept me in Stowe for the longest time, was just playing Foundry missions. And that's probably what I do the most still when I hop into Stowe, is I'll go find a new Foundry mission to play that I've either heard somebody talk about or I just seen good reviews for. And that's kind of how I get my story taste when like we're in between featured episodes with Cryptic.
So, in your opinion, what makes a good story? What really makes a storyline compelling?
I think it's definitely a plot that develops. I feel like Foundry series are probably my favorite to play, which is probably why they were my favorite to author, just because I feel like you could get more into it. Though a longer individual story can do really well too. And also something probably new. A lot of the missions I've played recently that I've really liked is just some new concept, where it's maybe not just you fighting an enemy, but one of them I really liked recently was you're exploring, again, the Delta Volanus cluster. I think I did a lot of those that night, where it was just exploring that cluster and you were discovering like new things. I think that's kind of what I liked, because a lot of the Stowe missions, it's not as much exploration as it is wartime, which makes some sense. But the one I really liked was you go to this planet and there's this weird alien just chilling on the planet, and you're rescuing, I guess, your duty officers who went to the planet, and you discover this alien that at first your character thinks it's good, but immediately you're kind of like, I don't know about this. And it's just some creature that can kind of mess with your perception of reality. And I guess it's like consuming your life force as it does this, but it gave the author a great opportunity to do some cool technical tricks, along with just an interesting story of how you escape this creature and get back to your ship, because the whole time you're kind of down on the planet, trapped by it. And it reminded me just of a feel of like some original series episodes where they go down to a planet, meet some weird alien they just couldn't understand, and have to play its mind games to get back to the ship or whatever. And so that was a kind of a nice change of pace. And I think as long as a mission does something unique, that's what's really the driving force, because it's something new and fun to accomplish in the game. And so that's always fun.
So you'd rather see something you've never seen before versus go click on these 5 things, shoot these 5 things.
It kind of goes back to earlier what I said. Don't just throw in combat just to have it in. Even if, I know some players probably definitely disagree with me because they like to go and shoot things. I feel like that's what the STFs or the repeatable missions are for, which I find myself, I don't really do those as much nowadays. And so when I go to play a Foundry mission, I'm not really looking for that. Though it's free reign, people can make what they want in the Foundry. If that's what they want to make, go right ahead. But I definitely find when I go to play a Foundry mission and I'm looking for story, that's the key there. And definitely focus on your story first and then craft the rest around that. because that's probably what I think most hardcore Foundry players are looking for, is a story on top of anything else.
That generally does seem to be the case. We have to serve the needs of the many and the needs of the one, but at the same time, try and have a reason for people to come and see the things we made.
Yep. I think, like, again, I think when you're authoring your Foundry mission, make something that you would enjoy and be proud of afterwards, because that's how I started. And I was very happy to see that people really enjoyed my first work. And so I do feel like as time went on, I tried to kind of mix what I liked and what I saw that my players liked. With this new series, I definitely tried to keep that in mind. And I also took a little bit of inspiration from the way Cryptic was handling featured episodes now. I definitely like how they kind of scaled back the combat to fit with the story. So I definitely tried to incorporate a lot of that into the mission and do some more non-combat things. I wanted a good balance of kind of that to keep the player interested. Because I felt also, as playing through Foundry series or missions more recently, ones that had a lot of combat back to back to back, I feel like it kind of dragged on because I was more curious about the story and less about the combat, since you can pretty much do combat anywhere in the game. If the combat fit with the story, though, that's when I enjoyed it the most. But in between, I would just kind of be like, I want to get back to the story, just because it was just driving me that hard to push forward and see exactly what was going on.
Yeah, sad to say that quite a few times I generally start falling asleep in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
It's like, fighting.
Especially if it's a lot. I definitely tried, because I know a lot in my earlier missions, too. I do, like, multiple waves that were coming at you, and you have to fight them. And as I kind of went back and played them, I was kind of like, As a player now, I was like, oh, another one. Which probably isn't a good sign, as I'm the author of that, but that's what I authored back then. But nowadays,
it's always funny just to see how you just evolve as you go, and you find how things that it's like, I really love doing this. But now I go back and look, it's like, I don't really need to do that. I could accomplish this with something else, and I can make it cooler.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, there's not much I changed story-wise for a lot of my missions. It's more of like, it's more gameplay aspects. I'd probably take a lot of the combat out I threw in. I don't know if I'd add any non-combat things in. I probably would. I guess my own personal philosophy for when I author a mission is once it's kind of done, the only time I'll go back and edit it is maybe for little things there, or if like something broke, I need to go fix it. That's kind of like why I've liked leaving it open. But, the thing is, it's like, once I have a mission done, I want to move on to the next project, because I have so many I want to do. I probably have at least 10 ideas right now for Foundry missions, that I all want to work on. So moving back to an older project that I already feel is still good is kind of like keeping those new projects I want to work on hold. And just because of like real life and all that stuff, I'd like to move on to those new projects and get those out there for people to see. Especially because I also feel they're more new stories that people haven't seen. And it's taking ideas that I would like to see as a player in the game and putting them in myself. That's kind of where the Children of Khan series came from. That was a story arc I very much would have liked to see. And so I decided, I'll write it myself, because it's been a few years since we've heard anything about that. So I decided, I'll go ahead and make that arc a while. And I left it open just in case if I want to continue that arc in some way with the kind of few strings I left behind, I could. And so that's what I kind of liked about some of the Deep Space Nine's episodes, where they kind of left a little string there. They might have finished the story, but there's still something there that they could always come back to and then pick up the pieces where they left off.
Sort of like what they did with the novels with, and I'm just blanking on his name, the Cardassian who thought Kira was his altered daughter.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know his name either.
Tikeni.
Yeah, okay.
Tikeni Gaynor. It's a GH name. I can remember that much. GHN something OR.
Mm-hmm.
But his daughter, you never actually see show up. Now, she shows up in the novels.
Mm-hmm.
And, in fact, she comes back for revenge and decides to destroy every version of Kira that ever existed ever. But that's just one of those things that I'll say almost a little thing, is a one-off thing, and he shows up twice in DS9. And she never shows up at all, but they do this whole book, like 3 of the books deal specifically with her. And it's just always fun to find that one little nuance thing. And of course, there's the other side, is you have to keep from going back and constantly editing what you've already done, going, I could change this concept just a little bit.
Yeah.
Update this art. Because, and that's one big thing. We've gotten a bunch of stuff added, I'll say fairly recently, compared to when you and I started back in the Foundry. What do you think is, of the additions that have come in recently, do you find being your favorite thing, or just something that you really like that they finally added for us?
I mean, I really liked all the new art assets they've added into the Foundry and stuff like that, and that's surely been nice. I did go back and add in the Odyssey uniform to all my characters just because I like that uniform. Plus, that seems like it's the new standard of Starfleet, and I like having that standard because that was something I complained about early on, was everybody kind of had their own uniform, which was nice for creativity, but story-wise, I do like now that we kind of have, at least in the Stowe universe, this one uniform. So I did go back and edit stuff like that. So all these new art assets are great and all that. But the one problem I had, which is probably the one reason I left for a bit, was it was so hard to find Foundry missions. And that was probably I think when I ended Foundry Files, that was one of my complaints I left the show with, was it was just getting really hard to find Foundry missions on my own, unless I heard from the author, somebody was like, hey, could you review my mission? Or I was hearing stuff from other players, because it was just becoming so hard to find missions. And the tagging system was nice, but the problem was people had to play the mission in order to tag it, which means they had to find it. So it was kind of like, this loop, whereas in order to find the mission, you've had to already found it to tag it, which then helped other people nicely, but you kind of had to have that start already. So I know, for a lot of my older missions, they still probably don't have tags for a lot of stuff. So I don't know if they're getting found through that. The system I really like that they've added is the 3 Foundry missions that appear in a system. That's probably how I played a lot of the new missions I liked, especially because those 3 missions are usually, if it's a system with 3 missions there, those are the best 3 that somebody's linked to that system, which I really like. So flying around and finding those, I like picking those up and just playing through those. And I think that's really nice. I know you mentioned earlier that some players have complained about that, but I, for one, really like that addition, because if I'm just flying around and I just want to play a mission that I haven't done before, that's a great way to do it. And I think it's, as a Foundry author coming back to the Foundry, that's something I took into consideration, was trying to put my mission where not many other people were putting the mission, so it'd be easier to get mine noticed because of that system. Just so if somebody's flying around, I wanted my mission to be one of those 3 that appeared up, because I think that's probably one of the best ways to get your mission discovered right now, besides just going and looking in the Foundry for it. So that's probably one of my favorite additions they've added, just because it's made it that much easier to go find other player missions now and to play some great stuff that people are making out there.
So you'll go tooling around the galaxy, checking systems to see what's out there, or even roll up to one of the exploration clusters?
Yeah, that's what I did when I was making my missions. I already, since I'm making these not anymore in the Gamma Quadrant, but more back in Federation space and stuff like that, I tried to make the systems also, wherever the mission was taking place, I wanted to find a system that made sense. For one of the missions in the series, you go to a Federation colony world. So I actually was spending a lot of time on the Stowe wiki, going through and seeing where a system would be good to have this Federation colony world. But part of the factor that did play into it was the fact of how many missions were already linked to this system. And I think the one I finally decided upon, there was maybe one other Foundry mission in that top 3. So that also helped influence it, though. But I was like, okay, this system already has a Federation colony world in it, according to the Stowe wiki. I'll use that. Plus, there's not many other missions linked here yet, so there's a good chance that once this starts to get a few plays, somebody flying by will see this and hopefully play it.
So have you noticed any success in that respect? Have you seen more traffic on some of your older missions because of it, or?
I feel like I'd have to put more missions to notice it, just to see if I put a mission, say, in another system that had a lot of missions already linked to it, if that one got less plays than one that was in a system that maybe not a lot of people put missions in. Because most of my missions were always linked through the airlock on Deep Space Nine, since they were all in the Gamma Quadrant. And for this new series, they're all systems in space now. And I don't think any of them are linked to a system somebody's using a lot or different authors are using a lot. I feel like as I put more missions out that are in systems, I'll keep an eye on that definitely to see. The other problem too is all the new missions I put out, they're a series. So I kind of have to follow the way series get played. Your part one obviously gets the most plays usually. And then as you go through the arc, you get less and less plays as you go along, either because people maybe didn't like it or they just forgot. But then, of course, your last mission of the series always gets a huge ton of plays, either because people also only find that or they skip to the end. I don't know. Because I've noticed that curve with my latest series, as I did with all my other series. Part one always got probably the most plays. Sometimes the ending got the most plays, too. But then as you kind of went through the arc, you got less and less plays until the end.
And it's invariably that it seems like you can always find 1, 2, and 5.
Yep. I definitely see with my latest series, I looked today, actually, because I hadn't checked the reviews in probably 2 weeks. And I definitely got a lot more play since I last checked, which I was very happy about, because I was worried that maybe not as many people were playing Foundry missions as they used to. But according to parts 1 and 5, I've gotten over probably 100 plays so far, which I was happy to see, because I was worried I wouldn't even get over 30. So seeing that made me happy. But as I looked in the middle parts, I was probably still around the 50 mark. So maybe people weren't getting to the other parts yet, or sometimes people, I think, just discover a part and maybe they don't realize it's a series if they're just kind of playing it for the combat or something like that. But it is interesting to see that curve kind of still last for Foundry series.
And for note at this point, Children of Khan's been published for what, about a month?
I think I published that, about a month or two, because that was early June that officially came out. I probably spent it was an idea I was playing around with my head for a good few months before I actually finally delved into the Foundry to start it. Because once I got out of the semester, I was like, I got a bunch of free time in my hand now with summer before I start work. I'll hop into the Foundry and try to make this series. And so I probably spent a good couple of nights. When I start working on a Foundry mission, I'm glued to it. I cannot pull myself away from it, maybe if it's only for a short break. So I usually spent pretty much my whole day sitting in front of the computer writing a part of that mission if I could. And so if I ever got stuck, I did take a quick break, get some food or something, but then I'd hop back to it. So it did take me a good month to write this latest series, just because I wasn't hopping on every day. But I'd get a day of the week where I was like, hey, I don't have anything to do today. I'll hop in and start writing. And once it was finished, I was like, hey, I wanted to keep it all unpublished, though, until the whole series was finished. Just so I felt like if somebody wanted to, like, rush through all the content and play it, they could do that. And also, there was that conscious fear I had, whereas I might publish part 1 and everybody go play it. And then when the time part 2 came out, and I finished that, people would have forgotten or something like that. And that was a conscious fear I had when I was writing the series. So that's why I kind of kept it all like under wraps. I think I only really plugged the series as it was in work maybe once or twice through an Instagram photo, just like, hey, look, I'm writing this today, guys. And so I talked to a few people, like Wee Wee was questioning me about the mission series, because he started also authoring after I was like, hey, I'm making a new Foundry series. Like, wow, it's been a while. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I haven't finished the one I was working on. And so I know he's been hopping in and working on his again. So that was kind of nice, too, to know that I got him back into it for a bit.
And he probably needs a break from school anyways.
Yeah, I know it's his summer break, and I don't know if he's working or not, but I know he's hopped back in. And I never played his last series that he came out with, because by the time I had left Stowe for a bit, he had published a new series, which when I came back, I was like, I gotta play it, especially since he did tie that into Deep Space 11. I was like, well, now I gotta play it. I gotta see what he did. And I did yell at him because he does something to Deep Space 11. I was like, dude, man, how could you do that? He's like, it'll be fixed. I'm like, yeah, I know, but still, you blew it up. He didn't blow up the station, but he caused some damage to him. Like, I'm going to hold you personally responsible for that, buddy.
Well, they do that in the novels to DS9.
Yep.
DS9 is no longer Terok Nor.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's to be expected.
It was just also kind of fun. Like, I always had an issue early on of people maybe using my missions as a jumping off point for their own. I probably still would, but if somebody asked, like, hey, could I use your station for a jumping point for my mission or something like that, I was like, no problem, especially because I know Wee was really good at writing. So I was like, if I give him this as a jumping off point for his series, I'm sure he can still keep what I was intentionally doing honored or whatever, something like that.
Keep the feel without suddenly turning the commander of your station into a lizard lesbian.
Something weird. He kept the same concepts there. He's still he only really used Admiral Murphy in his series. But as I was going through it, I didn't see anything that I was like, he wouldn't do that, or, this shouldn't happen. And that's what I kind of really liked. It was also interesting just to kind of see how somebody handled the material I left there. And I'd be curious to see how somebody else did it. Maybe somebody write another Deep Space 11 adventure. Maybe they find a planet in the Gamma Quadrant or something. And that would be cool to see. I wouldn't be opposed to something like that.
Well, who knows? Maybe after we're done dealing with the Iconians, we might be seeing more stuff with the Gamma Quadrant.
I would love to see that. I remember when they announced Delta Rising, I had so many reservations. Like, I want to see the Gamma Quadrant. I wasn't a huge Voyager fan, as I said earlier, so I wasn't as all thrilled with it. But I really like how they did pull off Delta Rising. It probably made me appreciate Voyager a little more after playing through it. But yeah, I definitely want to see them do something with the Gamma Quadrant, just because I'd love to see something with the Dominion. I'd love to find out more. Maybe there's something even worse beyond the wormhole that we didn't even see yet, or maybe there's something really cool. Or
else we find out that that culture that was big on games.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
They've moved on to more dangerous games.
I would love to see that. I mean, I'm a huge board gamer myself in my free time too, and I have a whole collection. And that episode, I know some people really hate it. I really loved it though. And just as a board gamer myself, I'm like, I want that game. I want to know the rules to it. Same as Tongo. Tongo's a game I would love to know how that works. And if that was on the market, I'd buy it in a heartbeat and learn how to play it, because that was just really fun. And I really liked when they added Dabo in. I wish that was a huger part in the game, just because that was a cool game to play. And we used to do Jupiter Force events in our fleet. I used to be the event coordinator with Wee. And we had an event that was basically, we got together and played Dabo, and then whoever got the most Dabos won a prize or something at the end of the event. We'd always have some prize, like a lockbox ship or something for whoever got the most Dabos, or the highest Dabo, since there were different levels you could get.
Right.
But that was always fun, because we just kind of sat around and did that. We always tied it with another event, since it was just kind of something small. So it would be before we go do some SDF runs, everybody come to somebody's ship, since somebody usually had the Ferengi ship that had the Dabo wheel there. So it was kind of like our own little private event that we would do. And that was just always fun, because we'd always laugh and see what everybody got. And there was always that spin where nobody got anything. We all were like, oops, our bad.
Yeah, and I need to actually go check it, because supposedly they've updated Lita's character model.
Oh, I haven't seen that. That'd be cool to see.
That's something that's happened within the last few days. I don't know if it made it to holodeck yet, or if it's just on Tribble, but I know that they did some modifications, so maybe that means that we're going to see some more stuff focusing in the DS9 area.
I would like that. I definitely like the addition of Nog they did recently. That was something that I loved. And it was really just, I loved his voiceover work, first of all, but I like how they tied him in finally. I'd like to see more Deep Space Nine characters too. So if they do a whole Gamma Quadrant exploration thing, I would love to see some more Deep Space Nine characters appear, because we kind of hear what they're doing now, like Kira's Kai and stuff like that. So that would be something I look forward to.
Well, I've been pushing for ages for more Starfleet Corps of Engineers, because, darn it, I want O'Brien.
Oh, I loved O'Brien. Basically, if they threw in any Deep Space Nine character at this point, I'd probably be happy.
Well, Kendra, did you have any more questions?
Well, all that talking about different things in the Foundry and what you like to see in story, do you think that the Foundry is a good forum for things like social commentary, or do you think that it should be kept lighter?
I think it is. I definitely feel like probably my favorite thing of a story is if it has some deeper message to it. And that's what I really liked about Star Trek. Just from it's just funny, as I had watched a lot of Star Trek as a young lad. And I would watch it, and I wouldn't pick up on these morals they were pushing and stuff like that. But as I watched it kind of as a teenager then, I started to kind of pick up on it. And that was really interesting to see. And there are some Star Trek episodes out there that kind of changed my mind on some social issues and stuff like that, which I have to say it's pretty good for a television show. Usually most people think it's just for entertainment value or something like that, which it is in the end. But I mean, if you can make a stance on some issue or maybe make people consider a way of thinking that they haven't before. I mean, even there was the episode Far Beyond the Stars. I really liked just because it dealt with the idea that maybe you aren't you. Maybe your life is being thought of by somebody else and it's just a story. And that just made me think of reality in a completely different way that I had never thought of before. And that was just an episode. It wasn't necessarily dealing with that aspect wasn't dealing with a social issue or something like that. But it gave me a new way to think about the world and like that, which is brilliant for a piece of storytelling. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with my own stories. Most of my early stuff probably wasn't as much dealing with issues and stuff like that. But definitely with the Children of Khan, I wanted to make it seem like make the player start to maybe question the way Starfleet was treating augments within the Federation. Because for a while there, I didn't actually think about how augments were treated. I was just kind of like, eh. But as you look at it, even Deep Space Nine, they kind of show you that maybe there's different viewpoints you could have on the augment issue and how they treat them. Because you saw the few of them in those episodes, Bashir dealt with a few augments. And of course, they might have had some issues to their genetic engineering upgrades. But maybe like some people like Bashir are out there and they've been outed as augments, but they can't serve in Starfleet and stuff like that. And that's an issue. Should they be allowed to or not? And I try to mix that in with the missions a bit and make the player question, maybe make them at least think about where they would stand if this was an actual issue, maybe today, if we had people genetically engineered, how they would be treated and stuff like that. And so I definitely try to, you can definitely pick up on that moral debate being made in the episodes I wrote. And that's something I definitely think the Foundry's good for, is if somebody wants to make maybe a stance, if they handle it in a good way, where it's not maybe just like preaching one viewpoint or something like that, I think it can be done really well in the Foundry. Just at least to maybe make somebody think about an issue, something like that. And that's what I think I really liked about Star Trek, was it dealt with issues, but it never got maybe too preachy. Maybe there were a few episodes that they did, but otherwise it was like, well, here's an idea out there. We'll give maybe some commentary on it, but in the end, it's up to the viewer to decide whether they agree maybe with the commentary the episode was making or not. And
except for Next Gen.
Yep. There were a few in Next Gen that were just kind of like, oh, and they just did bad. It's funny because I've been watching Next Gen recently on the Blu-rays just to see them, and I've since there's a podcast out there called Mission Log, where they go through each episode and they kind of review it and then discuss the morals that they tried to write about it. And it's always interesting hearing the debates because, of course, with the original series, not every one stands the test of time. It was always fun having them pick out. There was a lot of like sexist episodes back then, at least what people would regard today as sexist. Back then, it was the norm. But it's just interesting hearing that, like, and just saying, this is where Star Trek probably got it wrong. But it can't always get it right. But it's also really awesome to see where they got it right. The thing I really liked was, I forget that episode name. I'm really bad with episode names. I'm sorry. But it's the one where they're dealing with the two races that are fighting each other, and they're just using computer warfare. And it's funny how that episode, it had a message back then, but probably it has even more of a meaning today now that we are actually doing that with like the drone program and stuff like that. Back then we didn't have that. But now, 40 years later, we have something like that. And it actually makes more of a commentary on that than it did back then, which I found that to just be fascinating. So especially with the Star Trek genre, I think people and authors can get away with telling a story that maybe makes light on a current issue today, or as I did, maybe an issue that could be in the future.
And one last question, because I know you got to go.
Okay.
But is there a chance we will see a return to the Foundry Files, even in just the every so often quick review mode?
I have been asked about that. I don't know if it would come back. Maybe. I feel like one of the problems I had with why I left Stowe was just because I kind of burnt myself out on that. Another problem was just finding another co-host to do it with. After Wee had to go for college, it was just kind of like, I didn't really have anybody else, because a lot of people are already doing Foundry reviews and podcasts. And I think I got brought back to do it on Stoked for a bit, the Stoked radio, but I just didn't like the feel of it when I did it on that. I don't know if it was just because it was myself kind of going like, hey, this is the mission and what I thought about it. I always kind of like discussing it with other people. And so maybe if a certain situation came up like that, I would occasionally come on to do like a review or something like that. I don't know if a weekly thing would happen like it used to, just given where I am in life right now. But, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea.
All right. Well, thank you for taking your time out today to talk with us. And if you do have anything coming up, let us know. And certainly if you get the itch to publish another series.
I don't know if there'll be another series soon, but there definitely, I'd have so many individual missions in the works. Like, maybe not necessarily in the Foundry right now, but definitely in the writing schemes. But I can't say when the next one will be out, but I'm hoping it will be sometime soon. And people will definitely hear about that.
Oh, sure. And one-shot missions are just as good as 5-part missions. They're
exactly
so easier to play. Well, thank you for coming on tonight, and we will look for what you got coming next.
Thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. I had a couple of points I wanted to make, and I just wasn't there to make them. First one I want to say is a little anecdote. The thing about Babylon 5 and DS9, in actuality, is that DS9 came out a year before Babylon 5, so taking inspiration from that show would have been difficult. And secondly, Gene Roddenberry, his original idea for Star Trek was Wagon Train. He wanted to make a Western. So when the idea of a new Star Trek show came out, Rick Berman said, well, why don't we base one on The Rifleman, which was another Western with Chuck Connors about a single father and his son at an outpost, a remote Western outpost. And that's where DS9 came from. Really had nothing to do at all with Babylon 5. As far as I know. I mean, you know, that's the official report that that I read. But anyway, yeah, Murphy's a good guest. I agree with everything he says about DS9, by the way. We should have more DS9 in the game.
DS9 rocks!
That's right. The best. Alright, Thomas is missing.
Nope, he's muted.
Oh, okay. I thought it was awful quiet.
Then you missed my it's okay.
Yeah. Why, you don't believe me about the DS9 thing?
Well,
it's true that it came out a year before Babylon 5.
Oh,
so
sure. It may have hit the air a year before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the pitch, I believe, was made like 2 years before DS9 came out, which would have been 3 years before Babylon 5, so...
But you got to think about it this way. There wasn't a lot of sci-fi on the air when TNG was out. So, Next Gen kind of brought science fiction back to TV, at least syndicated TV. And by the time DS9 was coming around, other networks and other producers were looking for anything sci-fi to throw on the air. So there wasn't anything coming out at that time that wasn't coming on the coattails of Star Trek. You know, when something gets big and successful, everybody wants to knock it down. And
I don't really care. It's good. I don't care where it came from.
Well, I don't think there's any truth to it, because I know that story is true. That show was modeled on The Rifleman, and if you know anything about The Rifleman, you can see it. You know, it's a copy, but it's not a copy of Babylon 5. It's a copy of an old Western from the late 50s. If you ever watched The Rifleman, it's actually a lot like Deep Space Nine, or vice versa.
I never thought about that before. I've seen The Rifleman before, but I never thought about the connection between the two. It's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things about it. Do you know Garrick's Tailor Shop? Was the reason they made it a tailor shop is because it was a clothing store in Man from U.N.C.L.E. that was a front for the spies.
Yeah, I do remember that one.
Mm-hmm. So there was a little tip of the hat to that as well. since we got that coming out now, which I'm actually looking forward to. But, you know. Anyway, we have our Trek episode discussion coming up. And if you guys are ready, I'll play that now. But we have no synopsis because YouTube doesn't like my little episode synopsis. So I can't include them anymore. But I'll roll it. Okay. This week's episode was
Andorian.
yes, the Andorian incident, which was season it season 1, episode 6. Yeah. I watched like 15 episodes today, so it was.
I think I'm on episode 11 myself.
I got scrambled for a second there. Well, I made all the graphics and everything today, so I should have remembered that, but. Anyway.
This is our introduction to the Blueskins.
Right. And it was good. It was very good. Except for the makeup. The blue makeup was a little messed up in the first episode.
It was so much better than the original series in Andorians.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, it was kind of blotchy. Like you could see regular skin underneath.
Yes, but it wasn't red around the eyes in the same way.
No.
Hey, at least this time you didn't have a color editor constantly doing color correction on it and making them human toned.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it was. I tell you what, it was nice to see the stuffy Vulcans, getting caught sneaking around.
Well, and that was always, I guess, one of the criticisms of Enterprise, and this one kind of shows it right out there, is that the Vulcans of Enterprise, for the most part, were a much more militant and
I would say they were
arrogant.
Definitely.
Of questionable morals at some points.
Oh, sure, their morals, they weren't as. I don't know how to say this properly. Let's see. It was moralistic as far as their logic could explain. You know what I mean? If they could justify something with logic, then it was okay. Moral or not. But it changed. It changed in season 4 after,
After the entire, what was the triptych of, was it 3 episodes for the
Forge?
For the Forge,
yeah,
Kishara, and...
I think so, yes.
I must not be there yet.
No, you're not going to get there for a while. But that's when the more Spock-like Vulcans, came into prominence.
I think it's very interesting because conversation I had with you, Paul, a while back about Vulcans and Tuvok, and how I thought Tuvok was very un-Vulcan-like, and you were talking about the Vulcans in Enterprise, and it's really true, because the only Vulcan that I was really familiar with was Spock of the movies. And Spock of the movies is a very different Vulcan than Tuvok or T'Pol.
I think Tuvok is a very good Vulcan. He's a textbook Vulcan, I think.
I still say he does get angry and frustrated a lot, which are both emotions.
You haven't met older Sarek yet.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, of course she has.
Yeah.
I was going, wait a second, no, you have seen the TNG stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was sick.
Yes, that's true.
But it's proof that Vulcans are just like us. They just...
Yes, they have emotions. They just
but
suppress them.
But Tuvok was supposed to have been through the Kolinar.
Yes.
Well,
But
he's
he
also
wasn't
been brain
overly
damaged a couple times.
Right, but he wasn't overly emotional anyway. I mean, he had hints of emotion, but never.
He's so.
Well, there is that wonderful episode where he kills Neelix over and over and over. And
Yeah,
over.
well, that's what I was going to say. If you had Neelix, needling you all the time, you might
I
get a
don't see
little
what's
upset
wrong
too.
with Neelix.
I like
Neelix.
I like Neelix too, but he was always, poking at Tuvok all the time.
He wasn't trying to. He was trying to be his friend.
Yes, I know.
Yes, but this episode we got Dirty Tricks Vulcans.
Yeah.
We got to see the Andorian Empire in its height of military glory.
Yeah, the Imperial Guard and the great, Shran.
And some guy, James Hairbrush, Jeffrey, something.
Combs. Yeah. Yep. Well, even though, yes, I think Jeffrey Combs is great, but
I mean, the character was.
The character's one of the best in Trek.
Like when he's blue.
He's the one of the best characters in all of Trek is Shran. He's a great character. I like him as much as I like Garrick.
And then we got to find out all about T'Pol's numbing agent and how much she relies on it for her tolerance of human smell.
And Beagle.
Well, that's fair. She's Vulcan after all. They softened her up quite a bit too as the series went on. She's very, very rigid in the first season.
But I always blame that on her outfit.
Well, no, Star Trek is famous for softening things. Like, they even tried it with the Borg. Towards the end of TNG, they were even like softening them up. If it wasn't for them, jumping to the movies and, Voyager kind of bringing the Borg back, with Hugh and, with Lore, he almost felt bad for the Borg.
Well, and then you do again when they introduce Seven.
Yeah, but Seven's human. She was rescued from the Borg. The Borg is still
but
villains.
They use her to create sympathy for the Borg, especially like the different interactions that they have.
I suppose, in like Unimatrix Zero. But you were dealing with the Borg. You were dealing with the people that were assimilated by the Borg.
Well, you weren't you, too.
Wouldn't they? Well, they didn't, let's put it this way, they didn't feel bad enough for them not to destroy them, if they could. Voyager definitely,
What was the
they
episode?
kept them as enemies, that's for sure.
What was the episode where there was the colony of Borg that got separated from the collective, but they still use their implants to...
Yes, yeah, that was the
origin of the cooperative.
Right, that was, no. Oh, wait a minute, there's two different ones now. There was Seven's original team that was separated. That was the one with Vaughn Armstrong.
Not that one.
All right, then there was the one with Chakotay and the woman on the planet.
Yes.
With the Romulan doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the origin of the cooperative right there. Yep. But, yeah, the other ones were Seven's old team, and they wanted to kill her, right? Wasn't that it? Anyway. Well, we're getting off on the Borg here, and we were watching an Andorian episode. So.
Indeed. Yeah, no, the entire Andorian episode, I'm like sitting there cringing as they're smashing things. I'm like, no, old things, stop shooting and smashing. No, just, will you stop? Stop. Just stay still.
Hey, they had good reason to do what they did, I have to say.
I know, but history.
Yes. Well, I don't think the Andorians were that concerned. Not at that point.
No, they are notoriously I guess you'd say the second hottest headed species and the founders of the Federation.
I was more thinking that the humans were kind of not drawing the combat away from anything.
No, they were
Like
the
trip smashes, a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stuff in that first.
Yeah, when they saw the Andorian
Fight.
behind that,
Yeah.
you know, the divider, they just smashed it to the ground. They weren't worried about it. You know,
Well,
Yeah,
admittedly,
we're
at this
humans,
point, humans had a bit of a grudge against the Vulcans, especially this group of humans.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was a win for both the Andorians and the humans. Then, you know, they could feel a bit of moral superiority over them.
And it's almost like T'Pol's starting to feel kind of conflicted about her own people and some of the things they've done, because she's starting
Wow.
to see things from the perspective of the humans a little bit.
That gets worse as the series goes on. Yeah,
Until we get to, well, really, season 4 in the Forge.
well, I mean, not only that, but they've done some things to her that, you know, that
Spoilers!
would make her think.
Spoilers!
I'm not going
No
to say anything.
spoilers!
I'm just saying that, you know, she's been through some things that would make her think twice.
But this also sets up for future alliances, because it starts the "you owe me one"
Yeah,
between
that's right. The pink skin and Shran. Yeah, it's you know. Well, I mean, the whole series wraps up with him. Let's just say that. It's, you know, Shran's important. But,
Plus, later on, we'll get some great interactions between him and Saval.
yes, yeah, and that's another character they softened up. Was Saval. You know, at first, you know,
He was sticking in the mud, too.
Yeah, awful. You know, he was the first one to get angry, remember? You know, practically had a meltdown in the first episode for a Vulcan. And, you know, towards the end, he's an advocate of the human race. But, and he'll be in Axanar.
Yes, he will.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That I like to see.
I thought it was a well-written episode, though. I think that was the first one that I've watched so far that I was really like, okay, this is starting to feel like Trek. I mean, the other ones were good, but not, like, I don't know. There's a certain feel to an episode, I can't quite define it, that makes me feel like, I'm watching Star Trek.
Well, it definitely has that feeling. I mean, it hits there a lot of times. And it was a great idea. I just wish they had handled it a little differently.
I wish they'd picked a different theme song.
Well, that doesn't. I don't care about that at all, really. It's the material I'm watching in the show that, you know, I understand why they did it. It's, you know, they just wanted to bring it closer to our time by, you know, putting a pop song as a theme. I mean, it's a show where they were wearing baseball hats in the first episode.
Which you can soon buy again from Novos for a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
About this time last year, I looked for one, and they wanted a lot more money.
Yeah.
Because they were out of production.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Paul, we were looking for those.
We looked
at
everywhere.
Vegas.
Yeah.
And the cheapest one I found was $80.
Yeah.
But now you can get a NX-01 baseball cap for $50, which is still more than I want to pay for a baseball cap.
I have an NX-01 T-shirt.
You should lock that thing in carbonite and.
I have a Deep Space Nine sweatshirt. They're all folded in the closet on the shelf. I've never worn them. I don't wear them. You know.
Because apparently clothing is collectible, whereas the toys are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, I have a Data T-shirt too. Must have got that in 1988.
The year I was born.
Yeah. Oh, I have T-shirts older than that. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Andorian Incident, one of the, I would say, a highlight of the first season.
It is a gem of the first season. I have commented in the past that the first season is not the best season, but then, to be perfectly honest, let's face it, for even with the lens of TOS, most first seasons aren't great.
No.
I like Deep Space Nine's first season.
Yeah, it was slow, though.
And I like some things about the Next Generation's first season. Not the first few episodes, but a little further in.
Oh, I mean, everyone has good episodes, but some of them are rockier than others.
Yeah.
But there's usually so much character development that happens based on the first season that you really have to watch the first season.
Yes, you do.
Oh yeah.
Like
and that's even like with the novel series. If you go back and read some, like, say, the first 12 Star Trek Next Generation novels that came out and compare them to where things were come season 7, it's like apples and oranges. Picard is this stiff, not very emotional person.
Mm.
And the female cast is almost non-existent.
Yeah, well, when they were basing it off that, early
Worf is not a
TNG.
merry man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the first season's production was different. If you look at the Star Trek episodes of the first season, the TNG episodes, and then you look at the third or fourth season, just the production design is completely different. The music is different. I don't think they use as much of it in the later seasons as they did in the beginning. It's filmed differently.
Well, and did you ever get a chance to watch Shatner's documentary?
I have not. Not the newer one.
Right. That goes into a lot, and I really think that that's a lot of the reasoning behind some of that stuff, because, yeah, there was shenanigans.
Yeah. Yep.
But what we're trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is Andorian Incident, a good watch of Season 1 of Enterprise.
Yes.
But it's a Jeff Combs episode, and I mean, it might not be a Liquidator Brunt, but it's one of his okay roles.
Okay. Yeah. He classes up any episode he's in. No doubt about it. But there are a couple of them who do that.
You will think a blue man can get angry.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, do we have anything else? I don't think so. That was a long episode. We had that Admiral Murphy interview was almost an hour.
Yeah. Did you have any talking points on writing tonight?
Not tonight.
No, it was a big show. Next week, we'll get all the ducks in a row. Next week's a regular episode. But I'll bring up the addresses. We have a webpage, www.theauthorsoutpost.com. You can reach us at mailbag@theauthorsoutpost.com. Our Twitter handle is @authorsoutpost. And our IRC chat room at irc.geekshed.net is #Author'sOutpost. And with that, I will bid you good night.
Good night, good fight, everybody.
Good night.